What's going on, everybody? It's been an exciting day. It was an exciting weekend. Bitcoin broke a new all-time high. I'm going to show you guys the chart. We're going to also talk about alt season. I think this is definitely the time to start focusing on some alts. And following Bitcoin's cycle, alt season is not far away. Now, one thing I'm watching for Bitcoin is this rising wedge. Typically, this isn't a very bullish pattern and you do get a breakdown. And as I said in previous videos, at some point in this bull market, we are going to test the 50 MA before it's party over. And right now, the 50 MA is now at 90,000. Remember, not that long ago, it was in the 70,000s, 80,000s. As we continue heading up, this lagging indicator heads up as well. I do think at some point we will use it as a testing point, similar to last cycle. It is something that happened many times last cycle, just kind of as a reassurance of the trend. And let me show you at a similar time last cycle, right around the middle of December last cycle is when we broke this pattern higher. When you thought you would be falling down, when you thought you'd be filling this pattern out more, it actually broke out and continued running. It utilized it as a support along with the 50 MA, and it utilized the 50 MA multiple times before breaking it and finding it as resistance. I do think the 50 MA is important to watch this cycle, and I do think that sort of a rising wedge, we might break out of it and come up to our ascending resistance. We have this kind of a broadening pattern. You know, if we do break this and invalidate this pattern, we might just continue heading up and be at 115,000 towards the end of this year, or test it at least. We might continue filling this pattern out. At some point, I do think we'll come at least towards the bottom of this trend line. At the very minimum, test the 50 MA, but this could be early 2025. This could be later on. We could be much higher in price before then. Another thing you guys might be seeing is this bearish RSI divergence. The RSI is continuing to cool down while the price keeps rising. At some point we will see a reversal, and in a little bit I'll show you guys all of the indicators that I'm watching as a sign of topping out. None of these indicators are flashing that we are topping out, not a single one. And by topping out, I mean over this cycle. Sure, we can have a pullback, but we have not topped out yet. With Bitcoin firmly above 100,000, forgotten sleeping Bitcoin wallets are springing to life. This is something to be aware of, that long-term holders, you know, there will be wallets that wake up, and there might be a point where we see a pretty big wallet start selling. It might bring some fear, some short-term fear at the least. But basically a wallet from 2013, so after 11 years of silence, this wallet moved 106 Bitcoin, which is about $11 million. But look at this, you know, in 2013, that amount of Bitcoin was only worth $12,000. There are going to be really old wallets. While some are lost in translation, while some will never get cracked, while some will never get found, there are going to be these old wallets that people suddenly decide to open up, suddenly decide to wake up. Maybe they had a 10-year time horizon and it's a wallet from 2015, for example, and they want to take some profits. We will see that along the way. While the new money buys, the old money will start trimming and selling. Now, I do want to talk about signs of an altcoin season, but first let's look at this MicroStrategy news. MicroStrategy last week had news that they're going to be added to the NASDAQ 100, and this can definitely bring some buying pressure to MicroStrategy. And while some companies are added to this list, some companies are taken off, such as SMCI or Super Microcomputer, for example. And there's actually a lot more going on with SMCI. Let me know if you guys want me to talk about that. But SMCI has some hurdles to cross in terms of listing requirements. They had delays in their annual report, allegations of accounting fraud by Hindenburg. You guys remember Hindenburg? That name sends shivers down my spine. But these issues led to the resignation of their auditor. However, they did appoint a new auditor, received an extension from NASDAQ. They have until February 25 of 2025. Now let's look at some altcoin stuff. Has altcoin season started? Well, altcoin seasons typically begin 6 to 12 months after Bitcoin peaks out, and this is driven by a post-halving rotation. Bitcoin dominance peaking near 60% signals a potential altcoin season, and we are starting to see a hint of an altcoin season. We are starting to see some altcoins outperforming Bitcoin, and also Bitcoin dominance. This is a huge indicator. During Bitcoin seasons, dominance rises steadily as Bitcoin absorbs the bulk of the liquidity. Bitcoin goes up, the alts don't do as good against it. This period is characterized by cautious investor behavior. Primarily, money's flowing into Bitcoin as it's a safer asset. Such phases occur after halving events like 2016-2020, now following the April halving when Bitcoin dominance has gradually climbed. What typically happens after? You see that decline in dominance, that is when the alt season begins. That is when alts outperform Bitcoin, and by a large margin. Alt seasons happen when Bitcoin dominance declines aggressively. For example, 2017 to 2018, 2020 to 21. They saw dominance drop sharply, accompanied by exponential gains in altcoin market caps. Bitcoin dominance dropped, bringing more gains to the altcoins. And how we are currently, Bitcoin season is maturing. Dominance is peaking near 60%. If historical patterns hold, a sharp drop in Bitcoin dominance is the signal we need for altcoin season. And according to this chart, we are already supposedly touched altcoin season very briefly, but we dipped back down. We also saw this early in January of 2024. When you zoom out, you'll see that, these periods typically last longer. You do get a breakdown at times, but then sometimes you get a quick resurgence back up. If 75% of the top 50 coins perform better than Bitcoin over the last season, or 90 days, it is altcoin season. According to this, we are not yet there. Along with following Bitcoin's cycle and technicals, these are what I'm watching for Bitcoin topping out signals. Price cycle top, the RSI on the monthly and the weekly, the realized HODL waves, the MVRV-z score, short-term holders realized profit, and hash ribbons. Now let me know down below if there's any indicators you are watching for Bitcoin topping out. I'm more than happy to add more to this list to keep an eye on all these indicators. So far, nothing that I've seen is telling us that we're topping out this cycle. Will there be a pullback in 2025 before we go on to hit our final peak? I do think so. And that will be a final buying opportunity. Nothing like early August during that max fear, during all that Mt. Gox selling. Hopefully you guys took advantage of that. We are not getting prices like that again. We are not seeing a $49,000 Bitcoin at all this cycle, and maybe not even in next crypto winter. Our next bear market low could be 70,000. Our next bear market low could be 60,000, 100,000. Who's really to say? All I know is we are never going to see 15,000 again, the 2022 cycle low, and that has been proven in history. We never get back to the last cycle's low. Not even close. But how are you guys feeling on a day like today? This is definitely the time to be in the Bitcoin miners, in Bitcoin, in MicroStrategy, the Bitcoin plays, the altcoins. This is the time for them to shine. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I'll catch you later.